And we are back. We are the coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Media Network here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center, deep in the heart of the city we love, Providence, Rhode Island. As we always say, the Naked City, not just because the Foxy's back up and running, but there are always 1,000 stories in the Naked City. Tonight we're telling 3 of them. Last week, Brenda Jacobs, who's waiting on the line, was set to join us to talk about, well, last night, up at Halitosis Hall, we had, well, I believe even in my long-winded, long background following politics, as I like to say, my late sainted mom was one of the head honchos of the local Democratic organization. I've been following politics for over 50 years. So it's like most typical Irish American babies, you heard about it at the nightstand. But I've never seen anything like last night. Because last night, we literally had 2, I call them birthrights, the right to free association, the right to bear arms, 2 constitutional rights on a federal level, 2 rights at the state level, be literally subject to an honest attempt, I'm using that word loosely, to tax them. The notion that as a state we are so desperate, both on a financial and philosophical and moral basis, that we would attempt to tax dues. The most basic way that organizations of all types, religious, civic, personal, as one person noted, Amazon Prime, that we would attempt to tax that, to me is so fundamentally evil that, well, I had to talk about it. Let's add to that the notion that our fundamental right to bear arms, our right to defend ourselves, a birthright, is under continual attack by this governor, who, when her attempts to use standalone legislation seemingly fail or get stalled, or in some cases aren't as strong as she would like, has now decided to inculcate into your Rhode Island state budget, yes, the $10 billion budget, the type of fees to bury them, to hide them, that have the possibility of, again, diminishing your right to bear arms, or to engage in free association for those who would. In a state where we, every day, and you have to be of a certain age to get this cultural reference, we play Can You Top This? It's a reference to a 1960s television game show. And yet somehow every day we manage to, yes, top that. This leap of logic is so astonishing that even I'm appalled. And I'm pretty unappallable, if that's in fact even a word. So joining me for the very first time, we're going to take another shot at this. We had some technical difficulties last week, is Brenda Jacobs. She is with the Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association, an organization that, and I'm going to let her describe it, but if I could just throw an idea, is sort of an umbrella organization for folks who are involved for a variety of different issues, or a variety of different reasons, all legitimate, simply because they want to be involved, with the use of firearms in sporting across the state. Brenda, first of all, it was great to meet you up at Halitosis Hall this week, last night in particular.
Great to meet you too.
I applaud your testimony. I continue to be astonished at the commitment that folks in the 2A community, as it's called, have towards acting as a watchdog on people's fundamental rights at a level that you would be hard find to match here in the state. So thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about last night. In a sense, let's handicap it for a bit. What laws were up for consideration last night? What was supposed to be the focus of the conversation?
Well, the first thing is this isn't the norm for us to be involved in the budget process. So this was uncharted territory for us. Mm-hmm. So what actually happened is they pulled articles from the budget, and they were holding hearings on these budget items. So we were up there because they were adding regulations and fees to firearms dealers. They were adding a tax to the gun clubs, well, to all clubs essentially. They're adding a 10% excise tax on all firearms, ammunition, and storage. And they were including hunting, trapping, and shooting services into the grand scheme of the sales tax umbrella.
Mm-hmm. In a very real sense, when you look at a $10 billion budget, what type of money are we talking about as a percentage of the budget? I mean, suffice to say, I don't think we're talking about overwhelming money.
Before we even get started, under federal law for the Pittman-Robertson Act, we already pay an 11% tax on firearms and ammo, and that goes into the state and helps to fund DEM and conservation and habitat rehabilitation. So, and that usually is around $1 million a year. That money comes just from sales on, from the gun community. And then, of course, we pay our 7% tax, which goes into the general fund. So we're already paying 17 to 18% on all of our purchases. So I really think we pay our fair share already. And I know that the Pittman-Robertson money, that goes towards things like Arcadia and hunter safety and firearm safety and land preservation. So that's already benefiting. That's benefiting the community. It's not just money that's just going to be spent wherever they want to spend it. It has a specific purpose.
Right. So let's be very blunt here. The purpose of this money has little to do with raising money, is it?
We proved it. They actually, our reps did a great job last night because they pressed them to the point where they came out with the ban word, which is the word we all know that's behind this. And the other interesting word was the negative externality, that we're such a risk to the community that they feel that we need to be taxed. Is that not the most outrageous thing you've ever heard?
Negative externality. Now,
yep.
Let's talk about, and put this into context. As I've toured a number of I'll call them gun clubs, but they're really much more than that. They're family-based organizations for people who have a profound appreciation of the shooting arts, of camping, of hunting, of fishing, the outdoors. In other words, they are us. They are Rhode Islanders. What kind of people, I mean, for the love of God, everyone I've met in these organizations, the term, if you're old enough, would have been salt of the earth. Doesn't matter whether you're 20 or you're 70. If you're salt of the earth, that means that you're typically a working family, all the issues challenging working families, and yet you belong to these wonderful organizations that, number one, are stewards of the environment, because all of the ones that I've been to spend a significant amount of their fundraising, their dues, on the local environment. They're family-oriented, sometimes comprising 3 and 4 generations of memberships. They are community-based, yet draw from around Rhode Island. They provide training and safety alternatives for people of all ages, and they give back to ordinary charities significantly. Almost all of them have a pet charity. So
yes.
Quite frankly, they sound like the type of people that you want to live next door to or down the street from. Quite frankly, they are the salt of the earth, aren't they?
Yes. Yes. I don't think that we get enough credit in the firearm community for the value that we really do bring to the community. Mm-hmm. We have large tracts of land. We have, and in our clubs are business owners and family members, and we do a lot for the environment, and we do fundraising. There's just so much value that we bring to the table, and that's so overlooked because of the bad gun word, Mm-hmm.
So you've got this attempt, not really an attempt, a sitting Rhode Island government elected by the people who are not even hiding the fact that they've attempted or are working to demonize by using our tax code to demonize a valuable part of the community. I mean, am I exaggerating?
No, you're not. You're not, and that's exactly how we feel. We feel like this is assault legislation, quite frankly, because that and to think that we are, the government is supposed to work for us, and we're paying them to work for us. But right now, we feel like we're actually paying them, to attack us all the time. It's just crazy. And this tax also, they're essentially by taxing these gun clubs, they're taxing firearm safety. Because that's where we're practicing, where we're teaching our kids safety, and it baffles me. It baffles me as to how they can do this, and think they could get away with it too. The other thing I might want to mention is this did not come up on Bill Tracker. We all sign up for Bill Tracker to watch what's going the movement. Because they put it in under Article 5, we were not notified in Bill Tracker of this. We have to go in every day and read every single piece of legislation, every agenda, because this was going to try and be snuck through, which I also think is pretty disturbing.
And isn't that seem to be the way? I mean, if you look at this subterfuge being used by the Raimondo administration in this case, step one, you bury it in the budget. Therefore, from a voting perspective, it's more difficult to separate approval from the budget from approval for your little pet project. Number two, you make it difficult for folks who are concerned citizens, emphasis citizens, who are clearly highly engaged in the legislative process, who have done nothing more than provide a highly responsible, respectable, articulate, thought-based response to what is a clear case of grotesque government overreach. You are
absolutely.
You are guilty of all of that, which in the eyes of the Raimondo administration clearly means, or quite frankly by components of the House and the Senate, that you are not worthy of advance notification of legislation that has got real potential to change a way of life that has been part of the New England culture since this nation's founding. And by the way, I've seen it before. One of their sponsors of our show, the wonderful people at Yacht Club Soda, I had the unique pleasure last year of calling up the owner and informing him that, yes, by the way, tonight they were going to be holding hearings on a tax that has the potential to put you out of business. That's the kind of call a friend always likes to make, by the way. And yes, it means...
That's been resubmitted, by the way. The soda tax has been resubmitted again this year.
Excellent. Because it was such a good damn idea the first time.
Yep.
Cheers. It's grotesque. And what it really comes down to is an insulting lack of respect for the people who pay the bills. Because every one of the families that I've met at these clubs, and the diversity is astonishing, are all just regular folks who have a lifestyle and they want to be just left alone.
Yep.
So.
Yep. That we feel that this additional tax is really just a penalty on us for being law-abiding citizens and firearm owners. It's a penalty tax to us.
Right.
And it's aimed right at us.
Right.
And that's pretty upsetting.
Right. So let's go down the individual components. Let's, if we can, and point out how egregious each one is. Now, first of all, anytime you've got a tax like this, it's clearly regressive in nature. And what I mean by that is, since it is a flat percentage based on an action, people of lesser means are disproportionately affected. Now, doesn't that go against the Democratic Party's rule of inclusion and being fair to folks of lesser means? It's kind of a rhetorical question. But let's go through some of these taxes. So what's the first one that they want to do?
Well, that's the one that increases the dealer fees.
Right.
And it also changes language in that bill where they have to make sure that they've not had any tax infractions or mistakes in their record keeping, and and whatnot. So I'm not very well versed on that, but I know it does increase their fees as far as getting their permits and licenses.
Right. So you've got an administration that has just enacted, just a short week or two ago, a resolution and established a blue chip council and lots of poobahs who are going to look at finding ways to make Rhode Island business more competitive and more efficient. Does this?
Yep. And now they're going to attack the small businesses, and there's more than people realize, because there's also like residual businesses that sell, like tactical gear and whatnot. So there's probably about 40 or 50 small businesses in this state that this would affect.
Right. Who are, by the way, if there's a mantra here, are largely locally owned and family owned, aren't they?
Oh yeah, all of them.
These are closely held,
all of them.
Small businesses.
There are no chains. They're all small businesses.
In fact, the chains have fled from sales of firearms and some of the necessary accoutrements, and so this is an opportunity for legitimate small businesses. And there's really no track record, is there, of any of these businesses acting at any level in an improper form, is there?
No.
I mean, none of these businesses, again, have any sort of reputation for doing anything but observing the law. Am I missing anything? I don't seem to remember.
No, you're absolutely right, because you got to think about this. They already don't like us, so we are under a constant microscope, constant.
Right.
So we make sure we dot every I, cross every T, because we know what the repercussions are going to be if we're not, doing everything perfectly every time.
And I'm talking documentation. The level of scrutiny and the level of administration, if you're a small, family-owned sportsman's business that includes firearms, is astonishing. Background checks, documentation, the level of sales reporting. They don't make it very easy, do they, to engage in legitimate commerce?
No, they make it as difficult as possible, to be honest with you.
Right, so you've got great family-owned, locally owned businesses here in Rhode Island, many of whom have been in business for more than one generation, keeping the business home here in Rhode Island, already paying for confiscatory fees. The state's pressure on them has had all sorts of, I call it anticipated impact, in raising their costs of insurance and raising all the costs of doing business, because of, I think I'll use the term jihad on local firearms businesses, local hunting stores. And yet, we just spent an hour talking about how critical it is, and we all agree on maintaining a clean environment and maintaining the level of paradise, the sportsman paradise that this is, particularly in a part of New England where most of our surrounding states are overbuilt and quite frankly, urban-based and quite frankly, congested. They don't have the opportunities that we have here in Rhode Island, both for a local lifestyle and to also support travel businesses into the state.
Right.
All right. So you've got that. What's next up on our hit parade today? What's the next tax that they want to hit us with?
Okay. So then the next one is the tax, making the club dues taxable, which means any club, organization, or association. So now that's a slippery slope there, because we did, one of the reps did question them last night about that. And they wanted to make sure it wasn't just gun clubs, or is it just gun clubs? So they kind of skirted around that issue. They're like, well, the language down further in the bill does single out just gun clubs. But if you read that sentence clearly says all clubs, organizations, and associations. Now, that's a slippery slope, because even if it is going to be directed just as gun clubs like they claim, but I don't believe them, isn't that going to set a precedent? Now, next year, is it going to be your golf clubs? Is it going to be your yacht clubs? Is it going to be your Boy Scout troop, your soccer club, your book club? It's opening a door to something that, it's a very slippery slope, and it's a dangerous slope to be on. Not to mention, if it is just gun clubs, then they're singling out one group of people.
Right. And this is where, to me, it's most offensive. And always remember, for folks who may say, oh, you're exaggerating, this is a state that literally, and my good friend pointed out, this is a state where you've actually had the state of Rhode Island perform an intensive series of audits on funeral home directors. My good friend Bob Lancia discovered, much to our horror, to see if they could collect a few $100s extra from funeral home directors. So this is a state that will leave no shekel unturned, if you will. So now, you've got the state doing nothing less. This is what I tried to touch on in my presentation last night, my brief one, engaging in the taxing of free association. And this is what, to me, and again, it's so easy to sound like a conspiracy theorist, except it's happening. You know, there's an aspect of social engineering in this state where clearly they don't want individual organizations to either A, operate unfettered, simply because people want to gather and engage in a joint mutual hobby, and B, they're a mixed desperation to maintain the cash machine that is the state of Rhode Island. So there's a bias against organizations being able to be freestanding, and in doing so, you strike really a dagger in the heart of volunteerism, of organizations engaged in civic pride. And what does that mean? If these organizations, for example, any one of a number of wonderful gun clubs who actively contribute to local non-sporting charities, don't do it, then guess who gets to do it? The state. And so what you have then is the state slowly eating like a twisted version of the Cookie Monster, literally eating up increasingly larger parts of the economy so that we can become more beholden to and more responsible to and more controlled by the state. And for everyone who thinks, I'll ask you. I mean, we just met a few weeks ago. You impressed me as someone who's just incredibly diligent, incredibly articulate, someone who just works very hard on behalf of a lot of people that she'll never even meet. So you just met me, and am I out of bounds here? Am I exaggerating?
No, you're exactly right. The other thing about this dues tax that concerns me is, if we're going to be under the scrutiny of the Division of Taxation,
right? And
we all know how much our governor loves the firearm community. She loves us. So you can bet money that we are going to be under extra scrutiny. Now, when we get audited for tax audit to make sure that all of our members are paying their dues tax, does that mean we're going to hand over our membership list to the state? That's also, I believe, is against our constitutional right, because I don't want to ever have to hand over my club membership to anybody, because that's private business.
Right. So what you're literally talking about is and this is the evil. I won't use evil genius because it's that serious. But the twisted part about this is, to me, this is nothing less than a backdoor attempt to simultaneously monetize the sporting community while at the same time developing a gun database without calling it a gun database.
Yep, absolutely. And that that's worrisome, too. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different tentacles that go along with that dues membership.
Right. So they've got the force of law to using the coercive, we call it as a libertarian, I call it the coercive power of governmental taxation, to literally have an understanding of what guns you own, where you bought them, how much you bought them, and how often you're using them, simply by being able to monitor in real time the firearms that you buy, the ammunition that you use, and the rate that you use it.
Right. Yes, because if in that bill, it also says that you have to, the stores have to calculate that new tax on a separate line. So every receipt, they're going to know that you bought firearms or ammunition. They're going to know because they're making them actually put a line item in for that 10% tax.
Right. That's despicable.
Yeah.
I'm just plain and simple.
It's disgusting.
And it's clearly not for the money. And I just want to reflect back on that. We're talking about, in accounting terms, the word is de minimis, where you have such an infinitesimally low number as a percentage of the greater total that effectively it's meaningless. So we're talking using a revenue grab as an excuse for a few $1 million. And by the way, I mean, cut the House budget. Fire a few lawyers. Fewer shrimp cocktails in Pernod, as my friend Rudy Cheeks would say, at intermission.
You weren't there in the beginning, but in the beginning when they were presenting all of this to us, they also broke it down and they calculated, how much revenue was going to come in by these taxes. But then they go ahead and almost all of it is going to be spent on administration to police these taxes.
Right.
So it isn't about the money. We're just going to create a few more jobs that are money that we're going to just pay you to bust our chops again. I mean, like, and that it is so blatant. I cannot understand, how people can even think that this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole breakdown just spelled it out very clearly for us. Well, this is how much it's going to take. We're going to take in, and then we're going to have to hire, staff, and this is what the staff's going to cost, and it's almost a wash.
Right.
So we are going to use our tax money to wreak havoc on us every day. That's just fabulous.
Right. So what?
We're going to pay you.
I'm going to pay you to bust my chops. Welcome to Rhode Island. What?
Tough.
The 2A community, as it's generically referred to, the folks in the gold shirts, have become famous in the last couple of years for the overwhelming response they've had to this. Yet at the same time, unfortunately, with regard to a red flag law so bad that the ACLU opposed it, as opposed, in the case of a bump stock law so meaningless that it practically has no impact on life, yet at the same time represents that same pathological obsession this governor has for making her creds off of a group of law-abiding citizens. What is the 2A community prepared to do about that? And I asked that because just this week I attended a political action committee that's been formed. So give us a sense of what the strategy is, but also, just as importantly, how people can be involved proactively to support now the politics of your defense of the Second Amendment.
Well, you said something earlier. We just generally we want to be left alone. So we pretty much keep to ourselves, and we've really had to be forced to come out and be going to the State House and be getting involved in politics and be doing all of this stuff. And so what we have been doing is we have a couple of PACs now. We've been organizing volunteers. We've been organizing to go up to the State House when legislation is being heard. And if people want to learn more about it, you can visit any one of our websites, Rhode Island Gun Owners League, the Federated Sportsmen, Rhode Island Second Amendment Coalition, and Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association. We are all keeping people updated on our websites as to how you can donate, how you can help, and how you can just get more involved with the 2A community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really the critical point, isn't it? It's going to take, unfortunately, given the balance of power in the State House, it's going to take really almost overwhelming opposition, the likes of which we saw last night, and quite frankly, the likes of which we saw in the last session in response to the red flag laws. But even so, it's going to take people getting involved. It's not good enough anymore, at any level to sit and whine, moan, and complain, is it?
No. And the other thing is, you don't even have to be a gun owner to be part of us. Because, you know, in this process, we're learning a lot. And what else we're learning is all of the infringements on other constitutional rights that are happening in this state, and all of the other things that are trying to be slipped through in the budget and slipped through a legislation. We've been actually helping, you know, other groups, because when we're in there looking for legislation that affects us, we're finding all sorts of stuff that's wrong for all other organizations, and we're bringing it to their attention. So, you know, it's not, we're trying to help everybody, because we know what it's like to be up against it legislatively, and we're learning, and we're trying to educate other people in the community so that everybody can be active. Because let's face it, our government's gone crazy, and we need to start paying very close attention to what they're doing.
Right. What's next up? What do you guys have next up in terms of fighting this? Are you guys doing phone calls, direct phone calls, things like that? What's the plan going forward?
Well, we do plan. Well, we always encourage our members and the people in our community to make sure that they contact their senators and reps. If they're pro-gun, you know, let's make sure that we thank them and, you know, support them every way we can as far as, you know, fundraising and stuff. If they're anti-gun, we try and have an intelligent conversation with them and try and see why they think, you know, they're anti-gun, or if there's anything that we can help to do to educate them. And right now, actually 12 bills came out yesterday while we were up at the State House. So we're trying to read through those
12
to
bills.
see where we stand on them. And then we're going to watch for hearings, and we're already organizing for the next time we need to be up at the State House.
Now, as a sideline, I understand you got a chance to meet Bill Hunt last night at the...
Yes, I did.
Good guy.
Yes, I did. In fact, I talked to a couple people in his district today and told them I'm going to send them his information tonight. So when I'm done with this, I'm going to go in and send out some emails, because they want some information. So. Right.
No, we appreciate the effort. I mean, folks, I on a personal level, I haven't used a gun or a rifle in probably 40 years. And it doesn't matter whether you do either. We need to stand in support of activists who will work to protect your fundamental rights, should you choose to use them or not. We wouldn't think twice, for example, Brenda, about arguing on behalf of someone's First Amendment rights, right? We just wouldn't. It's a reflexive notion. We certainly would be upset if we saw members of the community subject to illegal search and seizure, say under the Fourth Amendment, right? If they were treated unfairly by law enforcement, we would be, I think, right up there defending that individual.
Right.
Just because you don't own a gun doesn't mean you should not be in complete support of the Second Amendment. Because I just want to reflect to people that the Second Amendment has less to do with shooting and the right to use firearms in sporting as it does to make sure that you're able to defend yourself both on a personal level and from any number of the societal concerns revolving around an out-of-control government that can exist. Those are the reasons why you support the Second Amendment. Once it's gone, or as we continue to see it chipped away at, it'll be too late. And I think there was a time maybe 5 or 10 years ago, even as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, where we thought that was the stuff of conspiracy theorists. Now we realize it's not. And every one of your rights is under attack. And
last night was an eye opener when he actually said the ban word. You know, I know even people in the firearm community were like, there it is. You know, like we didn't want to think that way either, but there it is. And to think, you know, that the reason that this was put in the budget was for that negative externality. That says what they're thinking of us.
Right.
They need to shut us down in order for them to come out with all of these crazy tax this, tax that. I mean, this budget is just a blatant representation of the agenda-driven people that are trying to take over our country right now. And I hate to even think that, but I'm watching it unfold with my own eyes, and I'm in disbelief of it, but I'm seeing it happen, and it scares me to death.
I hear you. Well, I'd like to put this invitation out to you and your organizations to folks like you who are warriors on behalf of individual and civil rights. I have an open door policy. I hope what we've started here is a really strong back and forth between myself and the coalition and your organizations, as well as some political elements that we talked about, to create a line of communication so that we can do whatever we can do in our own small way to support your heroic efforts, to be blunt. And I've met a whole number of people last night, and I met them at the 2A. I met them at the Armory earlier in the week and at hearings last year, and I continue to be as impressed as hell as to what you folks are able to accomplish.
Well, we appreciate all the help that we can get, and I appreciate you letting me come on tonight and talk about it. And I encourage everybody to try and learn how to shoot. There's so many opportunities out there, and if anybody's ever wants to just try or even just ask questions and get more educated on the subject, please reach out to any one of our groups. We are more than happy to help anybody.
And how can folks get in touch with you in regards to any one of these efforts?
You can go to the website, RIRRAI.org, which is Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association. And those phone numbers and emails come to me and some of the membership people, so we'll always get right back to you. Mm-hmm. So any questions you have or information, feel free to contact us through that website.
Super. Thank you so much for joining me on a Friday night again. So,
well, it worked this time. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. Brenda Jacobs, she of the Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association. She's one of a number of frontline organizations working as volunteers, as concerned citizens, and in my opinion, as patriots, to defend your right to bear arms and your right to engage in self-defense of both you and your community. It's that important. Brenda, thank you so much. We'll talk to you during the week.
Okay, thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Folks, we're going to take one more quick break. Joining us in the next session is Lauren Nidell. Again, another frequent offender to the coalition. We're going to talk about Bernie Sanders. We're going to talk about an incident in Burrillville. Folks, stay tuned. We are the coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live at the Worldwide Coalition Media Headquarters here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center, deep in the heart of the city we so love, Providence, Rhode Island. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and of course the mothership at CoalitionRadio.us. A big thank you to Beacon Shipping and Logistics, BeaconShippingAndLogistics.com. Auto brokers to the planet. Imagine professional, licensed, insured vehicle transportation for the community, the same people and the same professionalism that supports the automobile industry at large. Whether you have that car that you're shipping off to university, maybe Aunt Sally can't drive anymore and she wants to make sure somebody gets that boat. Maybe you bought something off of eBay Auto or off of Facebook Auto. Regardless, BeaconShippingLogistics.com, 1-855-3-SHIP-IT. They've been a wonderful sponsors of ours from the beginning. Them, Air Sciences, my favorite soda in the world, Yacht Club Bottling Works. They're the ones that keep this show going. And if you'd like to sponsor, feel free to reach out to us at coalitionradioshow@gmail.com. Independent media needs, quite frankly, the help of concerned citizens and concerned businesses who need to know that independent media can broadcast and have discussions and topics that, quite frankly, can't exist on the mainstream media. Folks, stay tuned. Lauren Nidell right up. We'll be right back.